and welcome to the Acer Education webinar series. My name is Nidhi. I'm Education Marketing Manager for Acer America, and I will be your host for today's session. The title of this presentation is Essentials for a Successful One-to-One Initiative. Before we start, I will take this opportunity to make some housekeeping announcements. Today's presentation is being recorded. You will have availability for recording of the webinar at any given point later, and so you can review it at your convenience. We provide you with a link for the recording in about 3 business days. Please note that the audio for today's presentation is being streamed online. You don't need to dial into a conference bridge. Just turn up the volume on your computer speakers for the audio. Last but not least, we will host a question-answer session at the end. But please feel free to type in your questions throughout the presentation as they come to you. All those questions will be collected and answered at the very end in the question-answer session. Excited to introduce Mike Jabber from Sheboygan Public Schools for our presentation today. Mike has been involved with Sheboygan and is a Google certified teacher and trainer, and has been very instrumental in providing trainings for Chrome OS and Chrome in general, in addition to implementing a successful one-to-one initiative at Sheboygan. I'm now going to hand it over to Mike.
Thanks, Nidhi. And thank you for tuning in. As Nidhi had mentioned, I'm Michael Jabber, and I am the Coordinator of Instructional Technology for the Sheboygan Area School District in Wisconsin. And I just want to take you on a journey that basically lays out the districts that I have worked for and what we've done to, reach a successful one-to-one initiative. So let's and the initial topics to consider looking to implement devices. Obviously, your school district goals are huge. Districts that I work with forget about probably the most important thing, which is what are the goals, because you take those goals and tie them to how you want to implement, device you decide and things like that. Also, budget and sustainability is huge. Right now, most school budgets are really, really tight, and a lot of times you have to move funds around to make this affordable, and so the sustainability obviously plays a role. The structure, the personal development, and continued support is something that we're going to touch on more in depth throughout the presentation. So these are kind of the topics that you need to look at when looking into a one-to-one initiative for your district. To district leaders all the time and teachers as well. And really, it's not about the device. I can't, emphasize that enough. A lot of times we focus on the device, and it should be about the device. And then you notice on the slide, or is it? I put that was because there are some things that come into play when selecting a device, and one of them being the device in a large deployment. A lot of districts forget about the whole back-end management, and they just figure, well, I'm going to get this device, it's going to be great, we're going to put them in the hands of students, and everything's going to be great. But when it comes time to managing the device in a large deployment, it becomes an absolute nightmare. So I'm going to touch on that as we go through as well. And the most important thing is teaching, and then is how to deliver that information. We want it to be transformative. And, it was probably a little over 5 years ago when our tech coordinator at my former district was at a conference with the IT director, and back, and they said, we listened to a gentleman by the name of Nicholas Negroponte, who was looking about $100 laptop for third world countries. And they came back and they said, if we can do that for third world countries, why can't we do that here? So the wheels started turning, and they said, we make this rapid. We need technology in the hands of our students, and a plan was set forth on how to do that. And so that's basically how we started as a district to really think about implementing technology or more technology and get it into the hands of our students. Talk about my former district in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. We were given an opportunity to build a team, which was our tech integration team, which helped guide our district through this process of a one-to-one initiative. As we had 4 library media specialists retire, and our superintendent said, you know what we're going to do is we are going to take those 4 positions and we are going to take teachers out of the classroom who are tech savvy and are doing some incredible things, and we are going to let them lead the way for our one-to-one initiative. And I applied for one of the 4 positions, and I was fortunate enough to get onto the team, and we built the initiative from ground up. And that was a lot of reading, a lot of contacting other districts from across the country, and to figure out how to actually go about implementing a one-to-one. And you can see on the slide that we're going to start at the high school. A large high school, it had 2,200 students, had an alternative high school as well, and a separate building that we had to deal with. Our district also has 3 middle school, or had 3 middle schools, 1 STEM charter school, 9 elementaries, and a charter elementary. So we built this program with 4 people leading the way, and there are a bunch of pieces that come into play. You have to sell it to the community. We're going to talk about the infrastructure. We're going to talk about how to choose the device, and then how to support it once you get it going. So that's where it started. So, I took this experience. I helped train teachers, get them on board. We had this rollout. It went just incredibly well. And that was doing for a neighboring school district about 33 miles away. And I was asked if I would be interested in a job with their district because they had started a one initiative, and their tech coordinator was retiring and they needed some guidance. And so here I am now at the Sheboygan Area School District, which again is right on the shores of Lake Michigan on the east side of the state of Wisconsin. And it's a little bit bigger of a district than what I came from. So I am the coordinator of the district. We've got 4 tech trainers, and we have 1 mobile device manager on my team. Also oversee the media specialists in our district. And you can see we started as an iPad initiative at middle schools. And when I came in, I kind of took a look at just what was happening in the district. I could see that they were having some issues from a managing perspective as far as managing the devices. And, from a Chromebook district, which was Fond du Lac, we implemented, 2,200 Chromebooks in one building. I made the suggestion of I think we need to change some things up in our district. So it's a process, but we did change the whole plan of action that was going to move forward prior to me getting there. And now we're actually, we high schools that are fully implemented with Chromebooks. They rolled out this year. Next year, all the middle school students will have Chromebooks as well. And the iPads that they had will be moved down to the K1-2 levels, and we will utilize them at that level. But we went with the Acer G720p 4GB device. We felt that was the best device at that price point. There's no device that's better for that device with functionality that you get. And students having had X iPads at the middle schools, they're used to that touch functionality. So those 8th graders moving up to their freshman year, it wasn't any real huge change for them because they already had touch tactile functionality in a device before that. So plus there's so many more things that you can do, and there's so many apps being built for the touch feature that we just felt that was the best for our district. So that's what we are using. We have about 5,500 of them and more to come in the near future. So to be done prior to your one-to-one. And these are the most important things. And I'm sure if you're listening, you've probably, you already know you've taken a look at some of these things, but I can't emphasize enough. In the order that these appear, this is how probably it should be done in your district. The structure is the key. You have to have your infrastructure set up. You have to have your list APs in place. And there are two different things. You can have coverage or saturation. A lot of districts, for money's sake, they will do a coverage type layout. And I would highly suggest, if you can afford it, to go more of a saturation, where you've got actually the actual Wi-Fi signals overlapping one another, as opposed to them just touching one another. Because what's going to happen when you move around and you're portable, you get dead spots, and we don't want people dropping off the Wi-Fi. And so we use saturation in our district. Bandwidth is hugely important. We have 1 gig of bandwidth going at each one of our high schools because we did not want bandwidth to be an issue. A lot of districts they start to set up the infrastructure, but they have the bandwidth to bring all these devices into play, and that's all of a sudden they start having issues with that. So make sure that your bandwidth is beefed up enough, depending on how many devices you're going to bring into your district, because you don't want it to be an issue. And then obviously how you configure your network is usually important as well. But the infrastructure being pillar one is the most important thing. It doesn't matter what device you have, what you've given your teachers. If you give them a device that does not work, they won't use it, they will get frustrated, and it's a waste of money. So make sure your infrastructure is in place before doing anything. This is a slide that might some feathers a little bit, but this is something that I had to deal with both districts that I was a part of. In our district, we have two departments. We have an informational technology and we have an instructional technology department. One is, the hardware, the software, the network and everything. And ours, the instructional side, is getting out and training our staff. Well, in practice, where the IT department, the informational side, we made the decisions for what was best for teachers to use. And, that was because the only thing that we really had to worry about was desktop devices and things like that. And so just have guys or the IT department determine what device would be best. And that was status quo. Well, the game has changed now. And I highly encourage you to, if you have two separate departments, that they are working together. The IT department really shouldn't be making decisions for what is best for teachers, and obviously which ultimately affects or impacts students. The people who are doing the instructional part, that should be making those decisions and passing those to the IT department, saying, this is what we need. Please get this to work. And it's a very tough point, and I met some resistance coming into the district because I just feel that me being a former teacher and our tech trainers being former teachers, and the teachers tell us what they need, those should be the people who are making the decisions on what's best. And then hopefully we can get our IT side, on the same page. But I had to teach a lot of the why we are doing this, why it's best for kids, why it's best for our teachers. And once you do that, I think that that gap is bridged. And once those departments start working together, it's endless, the success that you can have. So I know it's kind of a controversial slide, but I think it needs to be said. I do not sugarcoat anything, and hopefully I save some some grief down the road. Two, professional development. It's hugely important. Now you've got your infrastructure in place. How are you going to provide the PD for your staff to get them on board? Because one of the biggest things, foster support in the school community, because you're going to have naysayers who look at technology as being just a distraction. And so we have to get to them and teach them the why of why we're, utilizing either this device or why we're utilizing Google Apps or what your district is using. To kind of assess your staff skill set, where they at. You can do a finding out, where they are from a skill perspective, and then adapt your PD to that. Another thing is the admin support and modeling. A lot of times the admin will, support everything that you're doing, but they want to model what, you're trying to do as an initiative. And just case in point, the former district that I was at, once we started rolling this out and we were a Google Apps district, and we actually pulled off the Microsoft Band-Aid off of the new computers that we gave that we did not image them with any Microsoft products. And we had some admin that were sending stuff out in Word documents. And so we're not modeling what we were expecting from the teachers. So it caused kind of an issue. And then we had to get with the admin and train them and let them know, just what the proper ways of doing some of this stuff, was. And finally, it actually, they put on and said, yep, this makes a lot of sense. But, we're creatures of habit. And a lot of times it's tough for us to change. And but as long as they know they're supported, it's a lot easier to make that change. Develop PD training sessions. Initially started with large group PD. We found was it's effective for maybe 10% of your staff. And the reason being is because large group PD sessions, you have such an array of different skill sets that if you try to talk at the medium level, you're going to lose half the people below you, and then you're going to bore the people above you. And so that those weren't as effective. What we found was one-on-one sessions were incredible. And set up a model here in our district where we have our trainers actually stationed at the middle school on one day. We have them stationed at the high schools on one day during the week. And then we have a Google form that we created where they can fill out the form, do a request of a training on whatever topic they want, and we will meet them in their buildings to help them through whatever they want to learn. And it used to be like, because we pulled out of the classroom, we'd bring them downtown to central office, have to pay for subs, and it got to be just a nightmare because you want to be able to use what they've learned right away. And when we bring them downtown and we do things there, they go back to their buildings and they'd have questions that they couldn't ask because we wouldn't be there. So now this model has really worked well. We're also tinkering with kind of ed camp style PD, where we are allowing our staff to choose what topics. We'll offer a menu of topics, and we're going to allow them, what topics they want to learn about. If you give them that freedom, they feel much better about PD. Forced PD is tough staff because many of them will resist. If the old saying is, if you insist, they will resist. And so we're trying to open it up for them and allow them to choose what they feel is going to fit them the most. We just give them kind of a menu of different options. They choose what they want. And what's nice about our schedule, every Wednesday we have an early release Wednesday, where we have a 2-hour block in the afternoon where we can provide professional development for our staff. And I highly encourage districts, if you can make that work, even if it's a early 1 month, help support your teachers through PD. I would recommend that you look into that because it's really done a lot of our district as far as bringing our staff along, especially with all the changes that have been going on. And the last point is provide support. You really have to provide support for your staff. If they do not feel supported, lose them. When they have questions, they want to be able to contact somebody and get their question answered. Or if want you to come into their classroom, we have to be available for them. It's all about customer service when you get into, one environments and the, technology teams that you are forming. They have that customer service mentality because that makes a big difference in acceptance with the staff. We prepare the staff. You can assess this skill set, and there's different ways that you can do this. Like I said, you can do it through a form, see where they're at, and then adjust your PD on the fly. At my district, we created something called an ITP, which is an individualized tech plan for each staff member, and then set goals. And all it basically was a Google Doc that had different categories, and then we would actually with them one-on-one. We'd set goals for them, and then they would running dialogue in this Google Doc with us, and we could even when we weren't with them, we could still go into the doc and make comments and set new goals for them and gamify it for them and make them feel like they're a sense of accomplishment. So those worked for a lot of the staff members at my former district. One big thing is you go to so many conferences, you're overwhelmed with not only the things that they have to do, in district, but with technology things. And there's new tools that are coming out all the time. And we have to teach those tools first because we have to build a foundation to build off of. And so teaching the tools is huge. We get them teaching those tools, it's the next step. It's step 2, which is we call the tipping point, where you teach the integration of those tools and how they are going to play into your curriculum. And, I look at it as streamlining the way that teachers teach, making things easier for you or for your students by use of technology and the technology tools or, the web resources. So that's another thing that is really, really important when working with your staff. Send them to conferences. That's one thing I don't think gets done enough. A lot of the district leaders might go to conferences, but the people who really should be going and are the people who are in classrooms, seeing all these cool things that are happening, and then bringing them back in almost like a train the trainer model. They can help their colleagues with the things that they've learned. Go next. So 5, it's kind of a breakdown of what to do to get staff buy-in. So you need to alleviate fears. There is so much with fear of staff members. Staff members, a lot of them do not like change. They used to, kind of the way they've been doing things for so many years. And as long as they know that they are going to be supported, a lot of fear factor will go down. You sit with them and you show them and you just baby steps for some of them. It works wonders. Don't run, like I said, the baby step. You have to take it slow. There's going to be your high flyers that are going to take off with this stuff, and they have some that are cautious. They want to learn, and just have to go at their pace. And like I mentioned before, explain the why. Explain the why you are doing things. Teachers want to know the why. And, we had to do a lot of that in this district, and, want to do that and show sense. A lot more minds get opened up and people are more accepting. Have teachers lead the way. You need to have teachers have a say in what goes on and what they want to learn about. This is really important because if they don't feel that they're an active participant or have any say, then they're going to read anything that you try to do, and support them always, as I have mentioned before. This is one thing I always like to put in, because a lot of responses that we get from teachers, I know what I don't know, so they don't know what questions to ask. And so, as trainers and as a coordinator, we want to go out and just, try to build that rapport with the staff members so they feel comfortable. Just say, hey, this is what I want to do. I have no idea how to do it, but can you help me along the way? So they really have to know the questions. They just have to know and we help them, thing up or streamline a process, and that's what we're finding that we're doing now with all resources that are out there, and it's making things so much better for them in the classroom. This is hugely important as well. Building a PLN, professional learning network. There are so many teachers that use Twitter. They do not use Google+. I encourage you, if you're not a user of these tools, to sign up, because my professional learning network, I get probably 95% of what I know from my network, and I don't have to do anything. All I have to do is go out there and look through the feeds, look through my stream, and all that information comes to me, and I can vet through it, and I can decide what I want, and I like to share that out. I share that out to my PN, share it out to the staff, and so if you do have a large PLN right now, start, and I would highly encourage you on Twitter to get Google+. Those are two of the biggest things that I use, that I get a ton of information from. And I will leave Nidhi with some information if anyone wants to be part of my PLN. I'd love to have you and share a ton of things out with you. This is where it all comes together. So you've got your infrastructure in Pillar 1, you've got your PD in Pillar 2, and Pillar 3 is the whole integration. So now you've got all that stuff. Let's integrate that into the classroom. And you've probably heard of the SAMR model, where you start with substitutive and then you get to redefinition at the end. You have to stand in a one-to-one initiative. That first year, you're going to get a ton of substitutive work from teachers, where before they would hand out a worksheet, now might scan a worksheet and have the student do the scanned PDF and turn it in. Substitutive. And okay, but we want to keep moving them forward. We want to, the biggest thing is we want to put some of the ownership, or most of the ownership, in the student's hand. We want to let them be creative and let them take control of their learning, which is really, really difficult, especially if you're a veteran teacher, because you're used to telling kids what they need to know, and obviously spitting that back out on a multiple choice test or whatever. Now the change, especially with devices and technology, is okay, this is the goal where we're going to head, and how you get there is totally up to you. I want you to use your creativity. I want you to use the resources, and I show you understand this by, utilizing all of this. So you're giving students much more freedom in their learning, and they absolutely love it. Get some resistance from your A students, because A students usually want to be told how long a paper needs to be, when it's due, how many, what color font it has to be in, what size font, and that's a really difficult assessment for them when you say, okay, this is the goal. How it's up to you. You'll probably most of your questions from your A students. And then the last point is classroom management. Management is huge in a one-to-one environment. You have to change the way that they do things in the class. And what I highly suggest is that you put a behavior matrix on your wall of the expectations with technology in your classroom. If you do that, you're going to alleviate a lot of problems with technology, or that can come with technology. Another thing is reconfigure room. The rows, you can get rid of the rows. I would highly suggest collaborative pods, push desks together. You also can no longer sit behind your desk. You are going to have to get out, and you're going to have to roam around, and interact with the students. If you keep moving around the room and keep them engaged with different things you're doing with lessons, that takes care of a lot of management issues that you'll have. If you're a user of Chrome, which if you have Chromebooks, you obviously are in that environment, you tell them, today's assignment is, we're writing on this. That means you have one tab open, because Chrome is tab browsing. When you around the room. If they got more than one tab, follow instructions. And so you have to set out clear expectations and let them know that, you have those rules, and if they don't follow them, there's consequences. And so you have to be more active in the classroom as a teacher in a one-to-one, because you, as well as I do, when we're sitting in meetings as a teacher or as, an administrator, we'll check our email, we will go and do other things. So, you have to realize that our students are going to go off on a tangent if they're engaged and not in a structured environment. What we tell, our administrators is if you teacher in your building that had issues prior to a one-to-one, they are really going to have issues managing their classroom after you get a device in each one of the students' hands. So classroom management is huge when it comes to being successful in a one environment. So just overview, you got the infrastructure, the PD, and the integration, which obviously I think are the three, parts successful in your one-to-one. The classroom arrangement layout, you can see a picture here. This is actually a picture of a performer district who got his desk. He put it right in the middle of the classroom, a circular table. So he's kind of the center of his universe. And he controlled his class from the room, and see there is collaborative pods that are around him, and found that this worked really, really well for him. Another English teacher got rid of their desk altogether and had just a standing cart that would go behind. He would attendance, and he would get out from behind that cart and go out. And you can see the configuration of his room. He put them into different tables, pushed desks together to a more collaborative environment. Also seeing, companies go into something a little bit more high tech, where you've got desks now with wheels that wheel together into a collaborative arrangement. You can see bottom right corner where some of the desks were put together. And it's the same thing for learning spaces. You're seeing a lot of things called learning spaces now, where it's a much more casual environment, especially when you have devices, because you want students to be able to go and relax and get into what they're doing. And seeing so much change in the layout of rooms, media centers, and that's the kind of a wave that is sweeping. So highly encourage you to take that step and change things up in your building if at all possible. Resist your one-to-one initiative, something called Haiku Learning, and that is a learning management system. I recommend that if you want something that's real robust, something that gives you more functionality than some other tools that are out there. Some people ask, well, why don't you use Google Classroom as your LMS? Well, Google Classroom really isn't a full-blown LMS. Google Classroom is something that organizes your drive and allows you to hand out assignments and collect assignments and count assignments. But a true LMS has a lot more functionality. So if you've never heard of Haiku, I would highly recommend it. You get paid by them. I'm a user for many, many years, and it's really, really user-friendly for staff, and that is the key. If you have a learning management system that is to use, it's big drag and drop. You access through it. You can create wikis. You have student portfolios. Anything that you want to do, you can do through this LMS. Plus, it interfaces with your Google Apps. It's single sign-on, which is great. Also, monitoring, filtering, anti-theft. We also have purchased GoGuardian, which is a nice addition to just making sure that our students are safe. And again, every while you'll get a device that walks off, and this protects against that as well. We can manage that device, where it is, and if nothing else, render it useless for whoever has it. And the collection, a lot of districts want to know what of progress your district or what impact is being made by the implementation of this technology. And so there's a company called Bright Bytes, we just looked into, and we are going to be purchasing, which provides, data, baseline data, and then just how impact devices are actually having with engagement, instruction, and things like that. So we are looking forward to working with Bright Bytes, and if you've never heard of Bright Bytes, I encourage you to check it out, because it would allow you to utilize some of these tools. It's make your one-to-one initiative even better, and more functionality. So what's the parents about your one-to-one initiative? Get questions where, what if parents who don't believe in technology, they don't want any part of it, they don't want it for their student? And I field those questions often. You just let them know that technology is a part of the plan now, and that's taking place. Same thing with Google Apps for Education. It's a movement that is happening, and we have to explain to parents just what that is, because they have been brought up probably in a Microsoft environment, and or Yahoo Mail or something, and they have no idea. A lot of times we have to field questions like, well, Google does this and Google does that, and a lot of them are myths, or actually all of them are myths, and so we have to just again tell them the whys and just inform them of the real truths of all of it that they have questions about. Students can take ownership of their own learning. When you have accessibility for a student, we can change the way that we teach, and the students have more say than they approach their learning. Differentiate instruction so many different ways when you have access with a device. You don't have the haves and the have-nots. I do talk to districts that you will roll out a one-to-one, and that one will be at different grade levels because that's what they can afford, and that's great because it's a start. We went with both feet because we just didn't want to have the haves and the have-nots, because you put your teachers in a bad spot if you've got mixed classrooms and you have some students with a device and some without. We didn't want to put our teachers in that predicament, and so we gave every student at the high school a device at once. Interactive content, there's so much out there now, interactive, that's free and it's web-based, that teachers are taking advantage of. It saves money. You can see at the last bullet point, the cost savings to districts with textbooks. There's more textbooks online now. We don't replace some labs that we got rid of because now every student has a device, and so it's definitely a cost savings. Parents that. So distribution of Chromebooks advice. That best fit your district's needs. So there are so many different models of Chromebooks. When we started our initiative a few years ago, there was one Chromebook available, and you've got over 20, probably 25 to 30 different types of Chromebooks that are out there by different companies with different features. And so you want to purchase the model that best fits your needs. You want it as a reputable vendor. Who you buy from, make sure that they are reputable. You got a lot of vendors out there that will talk a big game, but they will not deliver on the back end, and so you have to be careful. White service is something that we have gone with, where they come configured with your network already, so we don't even have to do anything when they're here. They're ready to be handed out. Some districts, obviously there's an extra charge, but some districts decide, because maybe they didn't order a lot, they can buy themselves, which is fine, but we ordered so many, we white glove ours. Plan or schedule for each building was we distributed 3,200 Chromebooks basically in 2 days. And we had a great plan. We had a great schedule for the students where they would come in. It was like an assembly line. We actually even taught them about it, and they were in and out in 2 days. And it worked really well. It's a very, very easy device to deploy. All of work is in place for students. We are online now. Do paper stuff. Now everything's online as far as filling out the paperwork, and parents like that a lot. We want to parent questions and be present at registration. Make yourself available because parents will have questions. Purchase cases as dongles for our Chromebooks. We just gave them to the teachers in case students want to project. They could do that. We have a help desk at high school, and we have that staffed by 2 people. Person basically does some of the hardware fixing and goes about the building and trouble other IT things. While the other person is basically the help desk secretary and care of checking in, checking out issues that we're having. We have extra devices on hand because you never want a student to be without a device. Policies for lost, stolen, damaged, or misuse of device. You want to make sure those policies are in place. What is your workflow or repair workflow? You have that in place because obviously you're going to get some breakage, and how are you going to handle that? So we have a system in place where we have students working in our help desk, and we have students that can repair a Acer C720p, which is the touchscreen screen, in 2 minutes and 12 seconds, which is amazing. And then account management for students. Your password resets, just what are the settings that the students are going to be in and things like that. Those are all things to look at when doing large distribution of Chromebooks. I think we have time when we're going to have some questions and answers. And again, hopefully some of this was helpful to you, and I look forward to talking to many of you as we move forward.
So I also wanted to share your contact information with everybody, Mike. So here is Mike's contact information if you want to reach out to him. And in addition to that, the first question I have is, what type of questions do you ask for assessment of staff?
So that's a great question. So what we do is we had created a form. The form consisted of them assessing their level of Google Apps for education. So how were they in Gmail? How were they with Google Drive, creating forms? And so we broke it down into the different piece of our whole Google world that we worked in. And then also, how comfortable were they with Haiku, our learning management system? How familiar are they with web resources and finding web resources and things like that? Are they familiar with Chrome? Do they utilize Chrome? Are they still using their browser? So we just broke it into there. That way we can get a snapshot of where they are as a skill set, and then make any individualized plans that we feel is going to move them along the best. So, I do have a copy of that form that I can share out. If you send me an email, I'll send you the form that we use, and feel free to take it and modify it and prepare your staff.
Going to Mike, I have those links here, so I'm going to send that link out to everybody who's in the webinar right now, and they could just use that link if that's okay.
Great.
Another question in regards to training is, if you could elaborate a little bit more on any kind of student training you provided before handing out the devices to students.
We did. It was obviously we had them come in the assembly line style. They got their Chromebook. We had sure that their paperwork was, handed in. We sent them around to get their and we brought them to a table where we had them log in with their credentials to make sure that they could log into their Chromebook. And then we gave an overview, a tutorial itself. Many of the students are used to using a mouse, and so to make sure that they understood the whole trackpad, and that 2 fingers when you press down is a right click, and 2 fingers scroll up and down. We had to kind of go over that with them. Then we got them into their Google accounts, and we allowed them to navigate their mail, their Drive, We talked to them about Chrome and bookmarking, and they had kind of a whole menu list of things we covered. And it really took, with the group, it took us about 12 to 15 minutes to get through from they came, and picked it up to when they went around and sat with us. We wanted to just give them a foundation, because much to a Chromebook. A Chromebook is basically the internet in a shell. And, obviously students are on the internet all the time. So that was a big learning curve for them. It was just basically, some of the shortcuts, the keyboard shortcuts of what they can use to, take a screenshot or to copy and paste and like that. Stuff that they would utilize. And then they just kind of built off of that. So we built the foundation for them, and then, they just kind of went from there.
The last question we have is asking to elaborate a little bit more on the wireless infrastructure and how did you assess the current status of your wireless infrastructure, and that led you to either upgrading it, or what tips, additional tips you might have in regards to the current state of a wireless infrastructure.
Sure. What we did was we took a look at the bandwidth first, and we said, okay, does the bandwidth that we have currently going to be active with 3,200 devices in a couple buildings? And what we saw was we actually had one pipe that went out from central office and really got broken up to all the different schools. So we knew that was a red flag, because there was no way that 100 meg of bandwidth was going to suffice, especially with all the streaming that goes on with video and things like that. So we said, okay, because of the number of devices, we are going to basically go with 1 gig at each school, which we did. And then we bumped up the middle schools as well. I think they were running 50 meg, and I believe they're at 250 or 500. And so we just felt that was such an important thing. We brought our network guys out there as far as, the access points. They have little monitors that they bring out, and they can test to see whether or not the signals, are in good shape or not. And so they moved a lot of wireless access points, and they added a lot of the WAPs because they didn't want anyone dropping. So they definitely had, they're cut out for them, and they did a lot of upgrading to networks, especially at the elementaries, because the elementaries get forgotten about a lot. And so they go to the elementaries and really, really beef up, the network wireless access points there.
Hey, Mike, another question that just came is, do all students take Chromebooks home? How do you ensure that students' Chromebooks are fully charged?
So grades 6 through 12, Chromebooks home. It's a part of the PIS expectation. We try to build that into that framework, where since that's an expectation, they're expected to take it home and charge it. Now, as we know, that doesn't happen. And so we have, help desk areas, we have extra devices the student can bring down, and they can swap out their device for a loaner a couple hours until their Chromebook charges, and back and just swap it back out. Again, we don't want any time during the day where a student does not have a device. So we have that built into the help area. So keep track of those students, and if they're repeat offenders, then obviously that gets turned over to the administration, and then they deal with those students that are dual chargers.
Thank you. With this, we have come to the actually one more question that popped up. Are there any recommended Google Plus communities suggested for a continued support of one-to-one initiative?
The best thing to do, Jessica, is just go into the communities and just type in one-to-one, and your whole list of Google communities that pop up, and we just get the number of participants in those groups, because some are real small. Look at the ones that obviously have the most, members, and do Drop me an email, and when I go back to my Google Plus and look at my communities, I can send you the communities that I subscribe to, and they'll be really, really helpful for you.
I think that was the last question of the day. Thank you so much, Mike, for taking the time to share your experiences with everybody. And thank you, everyone, for joining us for this webinar session. As always, the session was recorded, and a recording will be available on our webinar archives page in about 3 business days. Thank you, everybody.
If anything, let me know. Drop me an email.